Um, a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's try and sort that light out before we do anything. Bear with me one second. It's going to be a bit of a strain. It's going to be a bit of a strain, I'm afraid. Right, apologies for that. I'll try and sort of block it out a little bit. Anyway, good evening. Welcome to a live preview, according to YouTube, which is a bit of a new one on me. I've done live ones for quite a while. I didn't think I was able to. This is going to be a preview of the racing at Cheltenham on Saturday. We'll go through the card. I was going to do this a bit later on. I was going to do it in the pub tonight, but to be honest, it's been that cold today. Absolutely freezing at Cheltenham today late on once the sun disappeared. So might have a quiet one. Might have a relatively quiet night. So anyway, as I say, we'll go through the card. It's not the most exciting Cheltenham card, is it? Tomorrow, it has to be said. I was struggling to find a lot of in the way of bets, or even sort of interesting races. Really, to be honest, as you go through them, the more I sort of looked at races, the more I thought, no, that's not a betting contest. That's not a betting contest, etc., etc. And I've ended up sort of there's really only sort of, I think, as I can see, 2 or 3 bets on the card, and prices have got to be there in the morning. If they disappear, then I won't be betting a lot at all tomorrow. It isn't like the away cards are any much better either. Doncaster and Hereford's cards are not particularly punter friendly tomorrow. I think it's one of the quietest Saturdays that I can remember for quite a while. Anyway, let's have a look through them. The 1205, the JCB Triumph Trial Juvenile Hurdle. I think this is about as much of a Triumph trial as me running down the road. I think that'd be about as much of a Triumph trial. I don't think there's a great lot here that's going to be challenging the best of the Irish once they get going. I'm pretty sure that we've not seen the Triumph winner yet. I'll be fairly confident of that. This race, I mean, obviously the interesting one from my perspective, those of you that sort of read the Cheltenham notes that I did for the November meeting, I mean, Yorksea is really the one to be with, because of all those that were in the paddock that day. This is the race that was won by Knight Salute. I thought he was the one that looked badly in need of a run. That was his first start since June, and he'd been running in France. It was sort of first start for Gary Moore, and I thought he'd come on plenty. And with that in mind, when I first looked at this race on sort of Wednesday, Thursday, I thought, yeah, Yorksea probably going to be the one I want to be with. But then yesterday at Warwick, the second in that race, Saint Ricoeur, came out and was pretty readily beaten, to be honest. And I went back and looked at the race, and maybe that Cheltenham race in November that Knight Salute won, I mean, they all sort of finished in a little bit of a heat, really. There may be a bit much of a muchness, and Yorksea's price is around about sort of 3 to 100 to 30. It's short enough now, I think. I genuinely thought it'd be, I thought they'd go shorter on the top one, Message Personnel. I thought he'd be around about sort of 2 to 1, and you'd be getting sort of 9 to 2, 5 to 1 about Yorksea. They're 11 to 4 and 100 to 30. Now, this Message Personnel, if we're going French, of Dan Skelton's, it's one at Dieppe in heavy ground. It ain't going to be heavy tomorrow at Cheltenham. There is some rain. I'll sort of throw this into the weather forecast. Throw the weather forecast in here. There is some rain at the moment. It's not going to be coming until the afternoon. And with that, I don't think particularly the early races, maybe a couple of the later ones will be run on softer ground, but the early ones don't look like being run on soft ground, unless the weather forecast is wrong and it comes in the morning. Something to bear in mind, I suppose. So we've got Message Personnel. We don't know about that. I say it's first start for Dan Skelton. John Hales owned you. It's well bred. It's related to some decent hurdle winners. It ought to be up to the job you'd fancy. And then the more you sort of go through, I think at the current prices, if you're pushing me at the moment, I think in turn to Civil of Nick Williams, he was another one. I mean, a lot of Nick Williams has learned plenty on the job first time up, and that was, I think, in turn to Civil, and knew a little bit more than perhaps a lot of Nick's did first time up at Warwick, but all the same, I thought Stamina looked like it might be his long suit at the end. He got a bit outpaced, ran on again, got beat 9 lengths. That's not a bad effort. That's not a bad effort. I think that's a reasonable first run. And if he keeps drifting out, if they come for the front two and he keeps drifting out sort of 7-8 to 1, then I think if you're desperate for a bet in the first, then perhaps Interne de Civiler each way might be the one. But if Yorksey comes out and wins tomorrow, I'll probably be a little bit annoyed with myself, but all the same, I can leave him at the price. And then the Novices Chase, which essentially is a case of can My Drogo jump round this time? I think it jumped around perfectly adequately until 2 out, and then both he and General Lime effectively came down. It was a novice fall, and I don't mind that. I've said before, I don't mind a horse that falls first time as a novice, because that's how they learn. That's exactly. And I made the point with Third Time Lucky. We saw him ping round Cheltenham first time up and jump well second time. We didn't know whether he could find a leg. Is he a novice that can find a leg? And then we saw it at Sandown last week when he walked through a couple of them, one of the railway fences, that he can find a leg. I don't mind a novice. I don't mind a novice that falls, if they learn from it. And we'll know tomorrow whether My Drogo has learned. If he has, I mean, he's well in excess of these, in terms of rating. He's a stone and more clear on him. And I think for all that I like JBY, and that was a good effort from JBY at Exeter, he was an absolute mile behind My Drogo at Aintree, and it's hard to see how he over hurdles that was, I should say. It's hard to see how he reverses the form. It's just not it's just one of these. It's not a betting contest. So. The 115 is the Simon Clace handicap chase. Those of you that don't know, Simon is now retired from the job. He's no longer the clerk of the course at Cheltenham, so he's having a race named in his honour. Again, from the notes, again going back, harking back to November, I thought Bundoran ran well actually behind Editor Jiu here last time, and he might well come on for that run. He might get a bit nearer, but I think Editor Jiu just a lovely. He's a real nice jumper that deserved to win last time. He'll do exactly the same again here. He'll go off in front, and he's going to take a bit of beating, I think. So again, I've been told to turn the microphone up by somebody. Let's see if that works. Right, there we go. If he does that again, I think he's going to prove hard to beat, despite the fact that he's gone up £7. And Moolah Gold's just, I don't think really a Cheltenham horse, much more an Ascot horse. Cheddleton, Jenny Canish's horses are just not running how they would be. Torpillo's not been seen for the best part of 2 years. Listen, if the dead 8 stand up, you can, and Frere Bombu's had 2 goes so far, and again, I think wants a step up in trip, which they're not doing here. You could argue that if the dead 8 turned up, Bundoran each way would be a reasonable bet. But anyway, we'll have to wait and see what turns up tomorrow. Then we've got the big one from a punting perspective, the Racing Post Gold Cup handicap chase. But again, it's just not, the more I went through this, the more I thought the right ones are probably towards the front of the market, and not too many of the outsiders made a lot of appeal, to be perfectly honest. I had a little bit each way on Zanza for the Paddy Power, because you knew how, Zanza's a lovely horse to back when you are trying to find something each way with extra places, because he's that sort of a horse. He won't be gunned out front. He'll be ridden cold out the back, and then he'll make ground up late and get himself into the frame more often than not. And surprise, surprise, each way 6 places. That's exactly what he did. He dead heated for 6th behind Midnight Shadow here. He didn't conclusively prove that he stays 2-4, but he did come home with a rattle, which was pleasing to see. His marker 145 is probably about as high as you want to be. But I am really taken with not just the Cheltenham run, but I mean the Exeter run before in the Holden Gold Cup. I mean, that couldn't be working out much better, really, could it? He's mixed it up there with Eldorado Allen, Hitman, and Granatine. And for all that Granatine wasn't fit for the Holden Gold Cup, nevertheless, if you're getting yourself involved with them, I think the bottom line with Zanza is he needs 2 mile where they go absolutely a million miles an hour and he can stay on the bridle and you know, and he needs a good round of jumping. His jumping sometimes lets him down. If he can get it together tomorrow, and it is an if, but if he can get it together tomorrow, then I could see him going well without winning. So he's almost like I'm almost saying he's a place only bet, Zanza. If you can get somebody that will lay your place only 5 places and you're getting around about sort of 3 to 1, 7 to 2, I think that'd probably be fair enough, to be honest. I don't think he can win, Zanza, because I think something will be too strong for him. But I think he'll be thereabouts. Midnight Shadow's obvious. I mean, but for a final fence mistake, he would have won the Paddy Power probably by an easy 4 or 5 lengths. So the fact that he's gone up 7, and the talk afterwards was to give him a crack at the King George. Well, obviously that's gone by the wayside. They've taken a look and decided £7 is fine, and they're going to come back here for, you know, a crack at a race. I mean, they were second in it last year to Chatham Street Lad. Now we know, you know, Chatham Street Lad was better than a handicapper now. And with Protectorat winning at Aintree last week, the form of the Paddy Power, it looks all right. It looks decent. I think the £7 rise is fine. I mean, you're given his overall body of form at Cheltenham, you'll need a sledgehammer to keep him out of the frame, I think. So, and you're getting your extra places. I think he's got a chance. I think he's got a decent each way chance again of following that up. I know my colleague Mr. Delagi is keen on Sapage, but I think 157, the handicapper's hardly being kind to him off of that. I get that he can go well fresh, and you know his Cheltenham record is very good, etc., but I think 157 is as high as you'd like. The other one that we both looked at and ultimately might well fall short from a class perspective, but top of the Cotswolds is going to be put in here at 33, 40 and will possibly drift to a bit bigger. I looked at him yesterday, and then today Vienna Court's come out for the yard and won, doing absolute cartwheels at Cheltenham, improving. She was a horse that looked exposed over fences and then suddenly found more. She's found a bit more today, in the hope that Nigel's, you know, 1 or 2 of those from Nigel's are now going to take a leap forward. I might well chance top of the Cotswolds at a big price. He finds winning hard, but that's because he tries a variety of trips. I think actually this might be ideal for him, a sort of stamina testing 2-4, where he can sit just off the pace. I don't think he'll lead. I think he'll sit sort of in that second row, as it were. There's going to be about 4 or 5 that will gun out, and I think he'll sit second row, and that could be ideal for him. He ran really well at Wetherby first time up this season at November. He was second to Palmer's Hill, who's completely unexposed as a chaser, and I think will make a nice chaser this season. There was nothing wrong with that run. And then, of course, at Newbury, he was just sort of he unseated at the first. It wasn't really his fault. He got hampered, and Sam couldn't really do anything but go out the side door. So that was enough. Forget that run. Put a line through that. They're running him again quick enough. So I don't think he's got any ill effects from that. He's a big price. Ultimately, he might just fall short class-wise, but I think you'll get a decent run for your money at a big price. And again, with the extra places, he might be one you want to have a look at. Then we come to the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle, where I can't see past Blazing Carl, if I'm entirely honest. I thought the way that he won at Cheltenham over 2-5 last time was impressive, and all he did was stay. He was never stronger than at the end. He sort of looked a little bit out of pace at times, just a little bit on and off the bridle, but once they turned for home, there was only ever one winner. And for all that, you know, he's now got the penalty to carry for that, and Giardino Bello, you can give a chance to, of reversing the form. I think Blazing Carl will take care of him again, to be perfectly honest. Over this longer trip, I think he'll beat him again. And the rest have got an awful lot to find, to be honest. Barony Legends won a fairly moderate contest at Lingford in very soft ground. I don't trust that form at all. So I think Blazing Carl will probably win again. And then the International, which again, from a punting perspective, has got I've got no interest in it really at all. Market's sort of changing itself around a bit now. So Royale was put in its favourite when the market first came out. Song for Someone's now favourite. Song for Someone ran perfectly well at Ascot behind Buzz, but I do get the feeling that Song for Someone needs 2-4 now. got away with 2 mile last year when winning this, but I don't think he'll get away with it again. I think 2-4 now is sung for someone's trip. 2-4 is probably the trip for a lot of these, to be perfectly honest. Wild About Oscar, I think, will want further. Guardian definitely needs further. I don't think he'll get outpaced. Hunter's Call, I just don't think he's good enough. Heaven Help Us, well, I mean, we know what they'll do with Heaven Help Us. They'll bang her out in front and try and make every yard, and that'll probably, it may well take Song for Someone up front, and the two of them might cut it up. So Royale is probably the one, if that's the case, as long as the ground stays decent. But he's never stood a lot of racing so well, and this will be his 4th run already this season. Would you want to take 5-2? He's the class act of the field, I think, but I don't want to. I'm in no rush to take 5-2 about him, to be perfectly honest. And then finally, we come to the Mayor's Handicap Hurdle. This is a race that's been kind to me over the last sort of season or two, I think. My old friend Indefatigable's in here. She nearly proved a stamina at Wetherby, but not quite. I know she went over 3 mile that day, but they dawdled round, and it suited the 2-speed horses, her and Prashima, at the end of the race. And then she just basically dogged it completely at Newbury. She looked less than tractable at the start, didn't want to know, and just threw the towel in early, didn't want to know. That sort of is very off-putting. Perhaps a return to Cheltenham, a track where she's enjoyed herself and gone well before, might be the key, but you won't want to be diving in, would you, now at 11-2? You'd almost sort of take half a point short of it once she's jumped off. Her Indoors has got chances on bits and pieces of form last season, not least, of course, the juvenile handicap hurdle that she won here in April. She came up the hill well that day. You can give her a squeak on that, but I think there are a couple that are stronger in here. Trapista's hard to weigh up. I mean, she's 1 from 1 for John Joe, but that Huntingdon form, is it's easy enough to knock a hole in that. The 4th, Puffin Bay, came out and won a pretty moderate maiden. Next time up was at Wincanton at odds on and was all out to do so. And the 2nd and 3rd, Hookadoodle is and Call the Fairies, you'd have needed radar to find the pair of them in their respective races last time. They got both well hammered. So I'm not sure the form's that great. The handicappers took no chances, really. It's Martello Sky. I think Martello Sky should be favourite here. Her overall body of form is really good. What she does is tries and she puts her head down, and that's half the battle with these mares, to be perfectly honest. I think what she's got is a bit of stamina about her at this trip, as she showed when she won here in April. She looked susceptible there a couple of times, but came up the hill really well. Same again at Market Race, and then first time up this season in October. Again, stamina looked her long suit. She won by 10 lengths, beat Breaking Waves. And then at Aintree, against Brewing Up a Storm, arguably a little bit disappointing, but the way that the race unfolded didn't suit her. And again, she still kept trying. She was still sticking to it at the end. It was a decent enough effort, and certainly no worse than Market Raising. I think this should be run to suit her. She's got the hill to come up. There's a lot in her favour, not least the form of Lucy Wadham's yard. I noticed last weekend they weren't winning at Sandown last weekend, but they were all running well. They were all running much more to the mark than they had been previously. And I sort of made the comment that the yard looked like they're coming back to form, and sure enough, they've had a couple of winners this week. They do look like they're flying now. So I think Martello Sky's got a really decent chance of getting back to winning ways in the lucky last. Guys, I bored you enough. Thanks. There is, one or two of you looking in on this live preview, which I've not done. I think I've done one of these before, so this is interesting. Thanks for tuning in. It'll go on it'll be on the Daily Punt tomorrow. What's my best bet tomorrow? Probably Martello Sky in the last, I think. Have a good day, everyone, and I will be back next week. Thanks a lot.